Well, hello, everybody. My name is Pablo Garcia Salaverry, and I am assistant professor at the Department of Thermal and Fluids Engineering at University Carlos III of Madrid in Spain. In particular, I belong to the Fluid Mechanics research group. I will present you a work in collaboration with Nieves and Teresa from the Department of Material Science and Engineering and Chemical Engineering, also at the University Carlos III of Madrid. Well, the work is entitled Modeling and Characterization of the Ionic Conductivity of Proton-exchange Membranes based on multi-block copolymers of sulfonated polysulfone and polyphenylsulfone polyether sulfones. Okay, so we will focus on the development of copolymer membranes with application to proton exchange fuel cells, and well, in particular, the part focus on the modeling and characterization. Well, so let's move to the outline of the presentation. Is as follows. First, I will give you a brief introduction to proton exchange membranes. Then I will present our copolymer membranes. I will show you the structure and our modeling approach. Then we will follow that by a discussion in terms of characterization and the numerical results via comparison between experimental and numerical results. And then finally, the conclusions and future work. Well, so the proton exchange membrane is here. We have here this cross-sectional view of a fuel cell, a proton exchange fuel cell. So the membrane is right in the middle. Okay, so we can see here, and it is the responsible of the conduction of the protons from the anode to the cathode. So while the membrane plays a key role in the efficiency finally of the cell, because the ionic resistance is directly related with the contribution of the membrane. At the same time, also the membrane, we have to avoid the transport of hydrogen from the anode to the cathode or oxygen from the cathode to the anode. So we have to avoid the crossover of species. So that's also a key point in the design of the membrane. High conductivity, but avoiding the crossover of gas species. And then also in terms of durability, many times the membrane is the component which causes the failure of the cell. So it is important to design highly resistant membranes to enlarge the durability of the cell. Well, the typical dimensions, the thickness of the membrane is between 20 or 10 microns to 100 microns. Okay. Well, so we have that the membrane as an efficiency limiting factor. And our approach is a full combination. We have in this collaboration, we have well, the synthesis of the copolymer membranes, the multi-block copolymer membranes. You can see here an image of the membranes, okay, with the two blocks. And then we have at the opposite side, we have performance. So we can test the performance of the membranes in the test station we have in the fluid mechanics research group. So, well, we have, and between the material and the performance, we have modeling and characterization. So it is crucial to understand the connection between performance and the material through modeling, and also the modeling must be accompanied by characterization. So these two ingredients are essential to develop high performance material in fuel cells and in general in electrochemical devices. Okay, so we will focus on this part here in the middle, modeling and characterization in this presentation. So the copolymer membranes, this is the structure. We have two blocks. We have the Polysulfone block, and then we have the Polyphenylsulfone block. Okay, so we have, well, these two blocks. This one, the Polysulfone block, is more hydrophilic compared with the Polyphenylsulfone block, which is more hydrophobic. Okay, so this this is the preferentially this block is going to take to be responsible of the water uptake and the conduction, the proton conduction through the ionic channels, and this is more hydrophobic and is going to give to the membrane the mechanical properties. Okay, but as I will show you later, well, we have both blocks are in fact sulfonated, so there is not a very clear separation between the two phases. Okay. But the idea or our target with this copolymer membrane is to design membranes with blocks that they have very different properties, and we can reach this trade-off between the durability and conductivity, say, performance. So when we look at our membranes, we have, this is FE-SEM images, a very heterogeneous structure. It's very random and multi-scale. If you have hydrophilic and hydrophobic domains at different scales, well, essentially very random structure. Okay, so how can we model that? We will use percolation theory. We will consider a mesoscopic representation of our membrane. So in this representation of the membrane, we have well, three types of sites. We have this site, which is dry, is a weakly sulfonated site. So this kind of site is going to be non-conductive site. So there is no water there. It is not sulfonated. Then we will have also these kind of sites which are disconnected from the ionic cluster, the connected ionic clusters from one side to the other side of the membrane, but they are sulfonated and they have some water there, but that water is disconnected. Okay, so we have this kind of sites are also non-conductive sites, because they don't contribute to the transfer from one side to the other. And then we have the good ones, say they are these sites that are connected, they are well hydrated, and they are sulfonated. Okay, so so we have finally all these three types. Okay. Okay, so with these sites, we can define some average properties of the membranes. We have the average degree of sulfonation. This will be the contribution between the degree of sulfonation of the polysulfone block and the polyphenylsulfone block. Okay, and then okay, we have also the length of the blocks. We can define the relative water fraction. Okay, this is just the volume of sites that are hydrated compared with those that are sulfonated. Okay, not all the sulfonated sites are going to be hydrated, only some portion of them. And this value is well, it is by definition bounded by between 0 and 1. In a first approximation, it is approximately equal to the relative humidity or the activity. And then we have the local water volume fraction. So within our sites, we have not all the site is filled by water. As those that have water, there is some portion that is, for instance, water, but we have also dry material, membrane material. So we can define like this water-filled porosity within each site, okay, hydrated site. So, well, this is how we generate the membrane material. We start with a dry membrane. So here we have the some sulfonated sites are those in white or gray. And then the brown one are those that are not sulfonated or weakly sulfonated, okay? So, and then we can put some water. So some of the sulfonated sites will have water, okay? And then as a final step, we only consider, we only keep all those sites that are connected from one side to the other, okay? So the water, it has to be connected through the membrane material. Okay, so this is an assumption that there are no isolated clusters there of water in our material. Okay, so and then we have to solve some equations. So proton transport, is model. We have the Nernst-Planck equation. In our case, we don't have convection, and also, well, we assume that the charge of protons is homogeneous, is constant in the material, so this gradient is negligible. And what we have is the part due to migration. So it was with the ionic potential. So this is the flux. Then we take the divergence and we conserve the flux, and we get this expression, okay, to solve for the ionic potential. And well, here is we have this is the bulk conductivity within each conductive site, okay, and is given by this expression. Where here we have the mobility. The mobility of protons is proportional to the diffusivity of protons, and then the charge is given by the ion exchange capacity times the density under wet conditions. And from the flux, we compute in the simulations, the average flux, we can compute the effective conductivity through the sample and compare with experimental data. Okay, so in terms of from the experimental side, we have 3 membranes, and this is the properties: the ion exchange capacity, the degrees of sulfonation of both blocks, and also the average degree of sulfonation. And for instance, it is a comparison with Nafion. What you can see here, now this, as I mentioned before, that this is we have the degree of sulfonation. At the beginning can be very high for polysulfone, and here is very low for polyphenylsulfone. But as we increase the degree of sulfonation, we don't have that separation of phases, and both blocks are, for instance, highly sulfonated. Well, we reach ion exchange capacity, which are around, they double those of Nafion. Okay, so these are our 3 membranes that we are going to model. So here we have, for instance, our representation of the membranes with different degrees of sulfonation, different relative humidities, they say, or this quantity, which is proportional to the relative humidity. Okay, you can see here, for example, this is space 1. We have a low degree of sulfonation. There are a little amount of gray sites. Then we have this 1, 2, and 3, which are highly sulfonated, and we have a lot of sulfonated sites. Okay, and the results. Okay, so from percolation theory, we have this result for a network with isolated cluster. We have the well-known result. This is percolation theory. This will be the black line. So the first thing we have to check is that we are able to reproduce those results for the network with isolated clusters. And then for the network without isolated clusters, which are actually our results, to compare with the membranes, we have here the symbols, okay? And what we do is this correlation is obtained by mapping. So if we are able to relate the fraction of hydrated sites of the network with isolated cluster with those of that network with isolated cluster, they are correlated through this correlation, okay, according to our numerical results. So we come from the results of the network with isolated cluster. We can put this fitting also here on our computed results for the network without isolated cluster. Okay, this is just a confirmation that the model is working right, and we can even put some equations there to correlate the data. Okay, so the experimental data, we have different relative humidities. This is the different water uptakes, and then we have also different ionic conductivities. And okay, so the relative humidity varying from 10% to 90 or 95%. Okay, so we can compare our experimental data with the modeling results. This is what we have here. Here on the left, we have the experimental data for the 3 membranes with different degrees of sulfonation. Space 3 and 2, they have a very high degree of sulfonation. They have a very good ionic conductivity as a function of relative humidity. Space 1 is much lower. And this is our results from percolation theory. So, well, you can see that there is a good match between experimental and numerical data. Also in terms of order of magnitude, the comparison, there are some points always that they are not perfectly matched, but we capture the functioning of the membrane, which is the target of the work. Then we can extract very interesting things from the model. Is, for example, the tortuosity factor. Okay, as a function of the relative humidity, and we can see that for space 1, the one with very low degree of sulfonation, the tortuosity is much higher compared with the other 2. So this is one important thing, that in order to design membranes that can work at low relative humidity, which will be terrible for performance, it is so important to design membranes with low degrees of low tortuosity factor. So that's also how to decrease tortuosity while avoiding excessive crossover and maintaining a good resistance of the membrane. So the key role of tortuosity factor. So for instance, the results can be summarized in two parts. We have the bulk conductivity, which is a function of the ionic exchange capacity, the concentration of fixed charge. So this is something we can control. All these variables they have an impact on the bulk conductivity. But then we have also the structure there. The normalized conductivity is affected by the tortuosity and also the volume fraction of water we have there. Okay, so we have to improve conductivity by touching bulk conductivity, but also the structure. This is the key role, the key point of this investigation, to extract useful information. And then, well, we have for the water uptake, we can also compare the experimental data, and we can see that with the model, we are also able to capture this. For SPSU, where the degree of sulfonation of both blocks is very high, there is a sudden increase of the local water volume fraction, and we can reproduce that with our mesoscopic model. Okay, so good practices for the design, as I mentioned, to touch the bulk conductivity, all these variables here. Then the structure is also important, low tortuosity, high water retention capacity. And then we have to look at also at the mechanical properties, the Young modulus, to control the water uptake. So all these ingredients has to be there to pass from the material to performance, and in this breakdown, obviously, as you have seen, modeling and characterization have helped us to extract and structure how we should move to design good membranes. Okay, so the conclusions and future work is a modeling framework for the analysis of copolymer membranes has been developed. Then the combination of synthesis, experimental characterization, numerical modeling is the proper way to advance knowledge. Have to combine everything. Guidelines for the design of high performance pens have been extracted from the model. Then we have key factors is the role of the bulk conductivity and the role of the structure, the normalized ionic conductivity. And then, well, future work we have further understanding. There are many things to also analyze with modeling. The effect, for example, of thermal annealing. We have to analyze membranes with mesoporosity, and also we can also try doubly functionalized polymers. So these are current research lines in the literature that we should also analyze with this full approach of combining everything to understand materials and performance. Okay, so that's all from my side. Thank you very much for your attention, and well, thank you for watching. Bye.